We all showed up for the debate. I'm Charlie Sykes. Sunday Insight starts right now. Good morning and welcome to Sunday Insight. In the week that was, Iowa voters get ready to cast the first votes of the 2016 election tomorrow. The Republican candidates debate, but without Donald Trump, who decided to skip that debate because he apparently doesn't like Megyn Kelly. A blockbuster deal for Johnson Controls. The FBI thwarts a possible mass shooting here. Community leaders call for action after another fatal carjacking, this time involving a 16-year-old boy who had been arrested 6 previous times. Milwaukee and 70,000 property owners could face a bill of $511 million or more to remove all the lead pipes delivering drinking water. But we start with the first Marquette law poll of this election year. The numbers suggest more problems for Hillary Clinton, whose lead over Bernie Sanders has evaporated. And in head-to-heads with Republican candidates, the poll found Clinton in a statistical tie with both Ted Cruz and Marco Rubio, but beating Donald Trump by 9 points. In contrast, Bernie Sanders runs much better, leading both Cruz and Rubio and crushing Donald Trump. On the Republican side, Trump does lead the field, but Marco Rubio has surged into second place. The poll also found Governor Scott Walker still struggling with a 38% approval rating, and Senator Ron Johnson is trailing the man he beat 6 years ago, Russ Feingold, by double digits. Joining me on our panel this morning, the Milwaukee Community Journal's Mikel Holt, the managing editor of RightWisconsin.com, Collin Roth, political strategist Lynne DeBruin, and media trackers Brian Sikma. Okay, so breaking this down, what was the most interesting number to you from this Marquette poll, Collin Roth?
Well, I think those head-to-head matchups where you see Donald Trump, who's the front runner, a nominal front runner, 24%, as you've noted, 76% of Republicans have rejected him. But you see these head-to-head matchups with Hillary Clinton, who's likely to be the nominee, and Marco Rubio and Ted Cruz run almost even with Hillary Clinton. Hillary Clinton kicks the pants off of Donald Trump. That tells you about electability, and I think that's a really important question for this election, especially in a place like Wisconsin, which could be a battleground state.
You pointed out 2 other numbers that I think are significant. Among independents, Hillary Clinton is losing badly, and you know, in a state that has a lot of independents, that's a problem.
Right. Hillary Clinton's approval rating among independents was just 19%, and she was trailing behind Trump, Rubio, and Cruz, all among independents. Yeah.
Now, sort of bookending, though, both Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton have gender gap problems.
Yeah, but 3 in 5 men disapprove of Hillary Clinton, 3 of 5 women disapprove of Donald Trump. Those are very, very difficult numbers for a general election campaign. If they go together, something would have to break.
Okay, so what is going on with Hillary Clinton? Because this poll, in virtually every other measurement, Democrats are doing awfully well, except for Hillary Clinton, whose numbers appear to be sinking nationally and here in Wisconsin. What's going on here?
Well, I think it's the trust issue, and I think that's cut into her. And also, I think once voters started to realize that there might be a viable other Democratic candidate, they started looking at Bernie Sanders. And remember, this was historically, Wisconsin was a very progressive, far left-leaning state. And
well, not that far.
Well, for a long time, historically was. And so I think that what's happening is, what I was surprised by was how much Sanders trounces Trump. It's not just Clinton that trounces him.
18 points.
Yeah, but even someone swinging that far left would trounce Trump. The independents would go with Sanders instead of Trump.
Brian Sikma.
Well, I think looking at the entire poll, a couple of the interesting numbers were just how much work Republicans have to do this year in Wisconsin if they're going to get Senator Ron Johnson reelected. I don't think it's impossible at this point, but it is a major uphill battle. You had Russ Feingold this week speaking at Marquette on the Issues Forum, talking about some different issues, and it's clear that he's got his groove back and he's doing nothing but nonstop campaigning. So the Johnson team has a road to hoe, but then the Walker team right now, I mean, they really need to be focusing on rolling out some big policy proposals. We saw the state of the state where there were some modest things announced, but they're only going to get those numbers up if they have some big ideas.
Okay, is it possible, Mikel Holt, that Bernie Sanders, a self-proclaimed socialist, could win the Wisconsin primary over Hillary Clinton?
Yeah, it is possible. You know, despite what Marco Rubio said about Bernie Sanders should only be president of Sweden, you know.
They don't have a president, but.
Well, that's what he said, not what I'm saying. But I think he's perceived as an outsider.
Right.
Just like Trump is perceived to be an outsider. People in Wisconsin, I think, are finally to this point where they're saying, we're just tired of all of this. We're tired of the clashes between Democrats and Republicans, the status quo. You know, And now many of the people who were previously outsiders, like Ron Johnson, find themselves facing people who are perceived as outsiders.
I think, and again, the number that really jumped at me, the two numbers were, first of all, that any Republican can win in Wisconsin if Hillary's the nominee, except for Donald Trump, but that Bernie Sanders is scoring that much better in a general election. I don't think he would actually do that much better in a general election. But if Democrats begin to think that it's not an electable versus non-electable issue, then I think Hillary Clinton's problems begin to multiply pretty rapidly.
Yeah, absolutely. And the electability question is really at the core of these numbers, and you have to think voters at some point have to start to zero in on what's going to happen in the general election.
No, I think that Democrats have struggled so far to define what makes Bernie Sanders an avowed socialist different from any other Democratic candidate. And that lack of ability to define that means that in their heart, they really, what Bernie Sanders wants, this free stuff that he's promising, they're okay with. The only reason they haven't gone with him yet, though, is because they don't think he's electable, and that argument is fast eroding.
Okay, Brian Sikma, you're the only member of this panel who's actually been down in Iowa, campaigning in Iowa. You're a Cruz supporter. Who's going to win tomorrow in Iowa?
I think Ted Cruz is going to pull it off. It's going to be tight. It's going to be a lot of hard work, but I think Ted Cruz
is that wishful thinking or based on?
No, that's based upon talking to hundreds of Iowans as I have over the phone and in person.
Okay, so how important is it for Hillary to win in Iowa? What happens if Bernie Sanders wins in Iowa and then wins in New Hampshire?
Well, you know, on the Republican side of things, it is more important to win in Iowa because more Democratic candidates who win the Iowa caucuses go on to win the Democratic nomination, whereas only about a third of the Republicans do. So for the Democratic side, it is important for her.
Yeah, because she will probably lose in New Hampshire and then. So what is your glass half full and what is your glass half empty this week? Let's go around the table, and Michael Holt, you're first.
Well, mine is half empty because Scholastic Publishing created a stir when he released a book that called A Birthday Cake for George Washington. The cover had the president surrounded by happy-go-lucky dancing black slaves. My glass is half full because that distortion of history and Washington's ownership of human beings was met with an outcry that forced Scholastic to pull the books off the shelves.
Collin Roth.
My glass is half full because someone, President Obama's former education secretary, actually called Milwaukee's horrible test scores a national disgrace. It's half empty because local officials chose to ignore the comments, revealing the tragic state of the acceptable status quo.
Lynne DeBruin.
Well, my glass is half empty because there are 50,000 homeless veterans. But my glass is half full because by working together, the Obama administration and major cities have cut the number of homeless vets in half since 2009, and 7 major cities now have no homeless vets.
Brian Sikma.
My glass is half full because Wisconsin lawmakers recently passed legislation that ends yet another form of taxpayer funding for Planned Parenthood. But my glass is half empty because Senator Fred Risser, a Madison Democrat, wants to declare abortion to be a routine procedure in Wisconsin.
Well, along the same lines as Collins, my glass is half empty because Milwaukee's education system is indeed a national disgrace, as Arnie Duncan said. It's half full because last week was School Choice Week, a reminder that we haven't all given up and that there are alternatives and there is hope. Here's our political countdown. The Iowa caucus is tomorrow. The New Hampshire primary is in 9 days. The Wisconsin primary is in 65 days. And we are now 282 days from the presidential election. We will be right back. A terror attack in Milwaukee, thwarted by the FBI. The details in this case are chilling. A 23-year-old man, Sami Mohammed Hamzeh, allegedly planned to stage a mass killing at a downtown Masonic lodge. The plot was uncovered after confidential informants tipped off authorities and recorded his plans to slaughter as many as 30 people at the lodge. Undercover agents sold him machine guns and a silencer and then arrested him. He appeared in court and denied the charges. Friends and acquaintances said they were shocked, describing Hamzeh as a pot-smoking slacker. And his mother says that he was set up by the FBI. So, Michael Holt, how seriously should we take this? How serious a threat was this, in fact, do you think?
From everything I've read and was told, very seriously. And I have to applaud the FBI. I really have to applaud. They're my new favorite law enforcement agency. This guy was intent on being a martyr.
No, well, I think he wanted
he
to get
wanted
away
to
with
escape,
it.
but other than that, he wanted his name blast internationally. You know, I still have some problems with why he chose the Masonics, other than, you know, Freemasons and George Washington, the founding fathers were, you know, but other than that, gun sales went up again, and people are really starting to tune into this.
Okay, Brian Sikma, I mean, again, playing devil's advocate, I mean, the argument is, look, this guy was just kind of a loser who slept in, he lived with his mom, he hung out, you know, really, he's not part of a terrorist network of anything, so was it really as serious as it sounded?
Well, this is a reminder that Islamic terrorism knows no bounds, and the fact of the matter is there were alert, vigilant people who were going out there, and we don't have to violate civil rights to get this information. This is a great case because it shows what alert citizens can do when they hear of these types of things developing. And the way we have social media, you know, you don't have to vocalize these things to your friends before you begin having these types of thoughts and plans. You can actually begin taking steps, you know, radicalizing yourself really with what the jihadists have put online. And this is also, I mean, back in January 8th, we even had an Islamic terrorist with a suspect with ties to Milwaukee arrested in California. That was all over the local news.
We are
so
definitely
it's
not
quite interesting.
You know, this is the exact type of individual that our authorities have said they are the most concerned about because they're the hardest to find. They're not routinely attached to making traceable phone calls to, you know, ISIS, you know, overseas. They're individuals. And you know, this smoke about how he, you know, smokes marijuana and is a slacker, that's just defensible, because the bottom line is the guy not only talked it all up and originally planned to go to Israel and attack Israel, he bought a machine gun. He kind of crossed the line
I think you're right about this. And the fact that he was perhaps, you know, lost, looking for an identity, meaning is exactly the kind of person that is going to be recruited by these Islamic terrorists.
Was he an ISIS agent? No. Was he somebody who was particularly pious? Not necessarily, but he fit kind of the profile of what we've seen, whether it's one of these self-radicalized individuals or just one of these mass killers that we've seen here in the United States. He talked openly about killing people. He went through the motions and actions to actually purchase weapons. I'm so thankful the FBI was on top of this.
And simply because he's a loser does not mean that he's not dangerous. That he's not dangerous. And I think I think Lynn's right. When you buy the machine gun, you've crossed the line. But there's another aspect of this, and this is not to take anything away from the FBI. This would not have happened had there not been the informants, his friends, who came forward. And it certainly looks from the documents as if these were fellow Muslims in the Milwaukee community, and you know, once again recognizing that there are in fact Muslims who do not accept this kind of radical ideology, and if they do not cooperate, if they do not decide to drop a dime on this guy, this case is never broken the way it is. Now, you may not want to hear it, but we will tell you anyway. Let's hand out some unsolicited advice. Michael Holt, you're first.
Well, mine is the black actress Stacey Dash. Obviously, in your case, there's a wide gap between beauty and brains. You need to reassess your asinine statement that we should eliminate Black History Month because it promotes segregation.
Collin Roth.
My advice is for Republican voters. Look at that Marquette poll and see who matches up best with Hillary Clinton. It's not Donald. Do the right thing.
Lynne DeBruin.
Well, if Republicans are serious about choosing a credible nominee, and I think most are, they should have more debates like last Thursday without Donald Trump in the room. Real issues were debated without personal insults or histrionics.
Brian Sikma.
Maybe we'll convince Lynn yet. Well, my unsolicited advice is for State Senator Chris Larson, who had a top aide resign this week amid a criminal investigation. Chris, don't claim Republicans are engaged in illegal conduct when your own house needs a little bit of cleaning.
Well, my unsolicited advice is if you want to be president of the United States, you have to show up for the job interview, even if a girl reporter asks you mean questions, especially if you think you're a tough guy, Donald. Next on Sunday Insight, good business or a tax dodge? We'll talk about the blockbuster deal for Johnson Controls. A blockbuster deal for Johnson Controls and a debate over tax inversions. State's largest private employer announces a multi-billion-dollar deal to acquire Tyco International. Part of that deal includes moving the new company's global headquarters to Ireland, in part to avoid paying high corporate taxes here. The U.S. tax rate is 35%, the highest in the developed world. Ireland's rate is just 12.5%. The new company said that it expected to save $150 million a year from the move. Now, presidential candidate Hillary Clinton is lashing out at the deal, saying that it was, quote, a direct example of what is wrong with the thinking and acting of an American corporation that we could get. Clinton said, I will do everything I can to prevent this from happening because I don't want to see companies that thrive use the tax code, the gimmicks, the shenanigans to evade their responsibility to support our country. Is she right? Brian Sikma.
Well, for years now, the Obama administration has pushed for the fact that they want to make it illegal for corporations to do this. And no doubt at some point, Wisconsin Democrats are going to blame Governor Scott Walker for this decision. But this comes down to the federal tax rate. And if we as a country decide to continue taxing corporations in such a way that it incentivizes them to leave the country, well, eventually they're going to do that. And Senator Ron Johnson's had a great proposal he's been talking about for several years now, and that's the idea of taxing profits on a pass-through level. So there's really no incentive for companies to leave, and we still get tax from
Johnson
that.
Control is about to become an Irish company. Are they unpatriotic?
I think it's absolutely unpatriotic, especially since a few years ago they were part of a group that went and lobbied to bail out the auto industry, of which they got a direct benefit from. So you can't hold your hand out to the federal government for money and then turn around and stiff them on their taxes. I think the real issue here is the bogus stuff about the 35% rate. That's the federal corporate tax rate. But that's not what Johnson Control pays. Johnson Control pays about 18% once they have their legitimate deductions, loopholes, etc. So we're not talking about 35%. That's where that $150 million comes from.
Well,
we're talking about the 18%.
Part of the way we do the taxes, though, that if you make this is a global company. If you make profits in foreign companies, you have to pay the tax there and you have to pay the tax here. Being an Irish corporation, you do save $150 million a year. So is the problem unpatriotic companies, or is it a tax code that is irrational and that is driving out these companies?
This doesn't happen without a 35% corporate tax rate, which is the highest in the developed world. And when you listen to Bernie Sanders, when you listen to Hillary Clinton, all you hear them saying is they want to fight tax rates with more taxes. They want to propose an exit tax. That's not the way. But
you know what? In a year in which you're seeing the populist message on both the Democratic side and the Republican side, it is obviously much easier to blame the company than to talk about the hard business of public policy and changing a tax code that has these consequences. So what is it you don't get this week? Let's go around the table again. Michael Holt.
What I don't get is why none of the conservatives who blasted Sarah Palin's disjointed endorsement of Donald Trump didn't hear her underlying message that far too many Republican politicians are on the take, controlled by special interests.
Unlike the Democrats. Collin Roth.
What I don't get is how a local Democratic activist accused of a relationship with a minor gets his charges promptly dropped, but conservatives get a lengthy secret probe for engaging in protected free speech.
Lynne DeBruin.
Well, what I don't get is why the affluenza teen wasn't originally sent to jail for killing 4 people while driving drunk, and why anyone in authority would now oppose him being charged in adult court for fleeing to Mexico.
Brian Sikma.
Well, I'm no Chris Christie fan, but what I don't get is why the New Jersey governor isn't polling higher in the polls when he's turned in some outstanding debate performances, including a very compelling appearance at the Thursday night debate.
Well, we've known about the problem of lead pipes for decades, and over the last 20 years, communities all across the state of Wisconsin have addressed the problem. What I don't get is why the city of Milwaukee hasn't done the same thing. Why did Milwaukee defer so much maintenance? What was more important, and where did Tom Barrett spend all of that money? Next on Sunday Inside, our panel picks the winners and losers of the week. But first, here's your morning news update. It's time for our panel to pick the winners and losers of the week. Michael Holt, you are first.
Well, my winner is radio talk show host Sherwin Hughes, who broke the news that a top campaign staffer for Chris Larson had quit or was fired for whatever legal reasons. There's 3 top aides to abandon Larson in recent weeks. Makes you wonder. My loser, Donald Trump and Megyn Kelly, who shot each other in the foot before and after Thursday's debate. By the way, is it true that Kelly tripped over those 5 feet long false eyelashes she was wearing?
They were long. Collin Roth.
Last week was National School Choice Week. My winners are all the parents and students who every year increasingly exercise their right to choice in education. Your zip code should not determine your destiny. My loser this week is State Senator Chris Larson and his campaign for county executive. Another staffer has to quit, and he thought it was a good idea to release an internal poll showing he was down double digits. This campaign is a dumpster fire.
Lynne DeBruin.
Well, my winner is Iowa. Iowa is a tiny state. Its population is not diverse. It's hard for adults who work or take care of children to participate in Iowa's caucuses, so turnout is low and skewed. Yet both political parties and the media have made winning Iowa so important that candidates spend huge amounts of time and money there. How absurd. My losers are women travelers of childbearing age, especially pregnant women, who've been urged by the CDC to postpone travel to the Caribbean and 20 Central and South American countries to avoid being infected by the Zika virus. Zika has been linked to severe brain damage in newborns and currently has no vaccine or effective treatment.
Something new to be scared about. Brian Sikma.
Well, my loser this week is Senator Russ Feingold, who said that his opponent, Ron Johnson, wants to end all taxes on corporations. That's just not true, and Feingold was lying, but what else do you expect from a career politician trying to get his job back? My winner this week is Senator Ted Cruz for standing up to the ethanol lobby in Iowa, which is led by Terry Branstad, the state's governor of 21 years. Republicans should stand up for free markets and oppose corporate welfare, even when it's unpopular to deliver that message.
Well, loser, the cookie police here in Wisconsin. The national media is picking up on the fact that in Wisconsin, you can go to jail for selling cookies or muffins without a license. It's a silly law, and it should be scrapped. My winner, well, last week we marked the 30th anniversary of the Challenger disaster, and it was a reminder of the incredible courage of the men and women who continue to try to slip the surly bonds of Earth. Thanks for joining us, and join me for my radio show Monday morning on News Radio 620 WTMJ from 8:30 until noon. Have a great week.